Threat, vulnerability, and risk. These are the three most commonly misused words in cybersecurity. Most people think of these three as the same thing, but they are actually completely different concepts, and you can never make the right security decisions without understanding this difference. In today's video, we'll break down these three terms, look at practical examples for each, and most importantly, see how they all come together to create a formula that every security professional uses every day. Why is it so important to understand these three words separately? Because the daily work of a security professional is to analyze the relationship between these three and decide which problem needs to be fixed first, which can be fixed later. In short, the relationship is like this. Having a vulnerability does not mean there is a danger, unless a threat tries to exploit it. And together, vulnerability and threat create risk. Now let's look at each in detail. Everything shown in this series is for educational and defensive cybersecurity training only. We do not promote illegal activities or unauthorized access in any form. Learn responsibly, stay ethical, stay secure. A threat is anything that has the potential to cause harm to a system, data, or organization. It could be a person, a group, an event, or even a natural disaster. The most important thing is, a threat does not mean that harm has already been done. A threat means that there is a potential or source of harm. Threats can be divided into three main categories. First category is human threats, meaning threats caused by humans. These include hackers, insiders, or even an employee who does something by mistake. Second category is technical threats, meaning threats caused by technical factors. These include malware, viruses, or any software bug that can be exploited. Third category is environmental threats, meaning environmental threats. These include fires, floods, earthquakes, or power outages, which are not direct hacking but are equally dangerous for data and systems. Let me give you a practical example. Suppose there is an organized cybercrime group that regularly targets banking systems and launches ransomware attacks. This group is itself a threat. They have the power, intent, and history to cause harm. Note that even if this group does not find any vulnerabilities in your bank's network, they will still remain a threat because their intent and power remain the same. Second example. Suppose security researchers discover a new malware that can infect older versions of a particular piece of software. This malware is itself a threat. If your company doesn't use that older software, then this particular threat is not relevant to you. But it does exist as a threat, somewhere in the world. Third example, suppose an employee in a company has just been fired, and he still has access to the company's systems for some time. This person is an insider threat, because he has inside knowledge of the system and may have potentially malicious intent. Notice in all three examples, threat only means potential, no attack has yet occurred. This is a source, which could cause damage in the future. Vulnerability is a weakness or gap in a system, network, or process that a threat can exploit. Simply put, vulnerability is like a broken lock on your door. It doesn't cause any harm on its own, but it creates an opportunity if someone wants to exploit that opportunity. Vulnerabilities can be broadly divided into several categories. Firstly, software vulnerabilities. These are bugs or flaws in the code, such as the possibility of SQL injection in a web application. Secondly, configuration vulnerabilities. These are caused by incorrect or weak setup, such as never changing the default password of a server. Thirdly, human vulnerabilities. These come from human carelessness or ignorance, such as employees not being able to recognize phishing emails. Fourthly, physical vulnerabilities. These are physical security deficiencies, such as keeping the door to a server room open all the time. Let me give you a practical example. Suppose a company is still running an operating system on their servers that has been out of support for a long time, so there are no new security patches. This old, unpatched software is a vulnerability. Note that just having this old software does not mean that the company will be hacked right away. But this vulnerability is like an open door that someone can use if they find it. Second example, suppose a company system allows users to use weak passwords like password 123 and MFA is not mandatory. This weak password policy is a vulnerability. Again, note that this weak policy does not cause any harm on its own, but it creates an easy opportunity if an attacker tries to guess the password. Third example, suppose a company's employees have never been trained to recognize phishing emails. This ignorance is a human vulnerability. They may click on a suspicious email because they don't know how to recognize it. Notice, in all three examples, vulnerability means a weak point, which is not harmful in itself, but creates an opportunity for exploitation. Now let's see how vulnerability is found. First, vulnerability scanning. Known vulnerabilities are found in the system using automated tools. Second, penetration testing. An ethical hacker manually tries to find vulnerabilities in the system, just like a real attacker would do. Third, code review. Developers check the software code to see if there are any security flaws. Fourth, CVE database. CVE stands for Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures. It is a global public database that lists software vulnerabilities found around the world so that companies can know if there are any known vulnerabilities in the software they use. Now let's get to the most important concept, risk. Risk is the combination of the likelihood that a threat will exploit a vulnerability to cause harm and the impact of that harm. This is where threat and vulnerability come together. Remember a simple formula. Threat and vulnerability together create risk. If either of these is missing, then there is no real risk. In more detail, risk depends on three things. First, how real and active the threat is. Meaning, is someone actually trying to carry out this attack? Second, how easily the vulnerability can be exploited. Third, impact. How big the damage will be if it happens. These three factors are taken together to determine the level of a risk, such as low, medium, high, or critical. Now, let's look at the whole concept together with a complete example. Imagine, a company's web server is running old, unpatched software. This is our vulnerability. Now, there is a hacker group active on the internet that is actively launching attacks using this specific vulnerability in this same software. This is our threat. Now, these two together create risk. That is, there is a real possibility that this company's server will actually be hacked. Now let's consider impact. If this server only has a public marketing website, then the damage if hacked is limited. But if this same server also stores customers' credit card information, then the impact is much higher. And therefore the overall risk level is much higher, probably at the critical level. This example highlights a very important point. The same vulnerability can create different levels of risk in different situations. Scenario 1. A small blog website is running old software, but there are no active threats targeting this particular software, and there is no sensitive data on the server. Here, the risk is relatively low. Scenario 2. A bank server is running the same old software. An active hacker group is targeting this vulnerability, and the server has millions of customers' financial data. Here, the vulnerability is the same, but the risk level is skyrocketing. This is why security professionals never panic just by hearing there is a vulnerability. They first analyze whether there is a real threat associated with this vulnerability and how severe the impact will be, and then prioritize accordingly. Now let's see how these three concepts are used in the real professional world. This is called risk management, and it usually consists of 4 steps. Step 1, identify. The security team first finds out what vulnerabilities their system has and which threats are relevant to them. Step 2, assess. The risk level is determined by analyzing each combination of vulnerability and threat: low, medium, high, or critical. Step 3, respond. There are 3 options here. 1, mitigate. Means fixing the vulnerability and reducing the risk, such as updating the software. 2, transfer. Means transferring the risk to someone else, such as buying cyber insurance. 3, accept. Means consciously accepting the risk if the risk is very low and the cost of fixing is high. Step 4, monitor. The risk situation is constantly monitored because new threats or new vulnerabilities can appear at any time. This 4-step process is the foundation of a company's overall security strategy. Now let's do a brief comparison so that the whole concept is clearly embedded in the mind. Threat is a potential source of damage. Example, a hacker group or a malware. Vulnerability is a weak point that can be exploited. Example, outdated software or weak password policy. Risk is the actual possibility created by threat and vulnerability together and its potential impact. Example, the possibility of customer data being stolen through outdated software targeted by a hacker group active on a bank server. An easy way to remember is, threat is who or what can cause damage, vulnerability is where the weakness is, and risk is how much danger these two together actually create. Today we learned that a threat is a potential source of harm, a vulnerability is a weakness that can be exploited, and a risk is the actual danger created when these two come together. The job of a security professional is not just to look at a threat or vulnerability separately, but to analyze their relationship and decide which risk needs to be addressed first. This was a complete breakdown of threat, vulnerability, and risk with real-world examples. In the next video in this playlist, we'll learn what AA, authentication, authorization, and accounting are, why each of these three is the foundation of a secure system and how they work together in practice. If you don't want to miss the next lesson on Cybersecurity Roadmap, subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell icon. See you in the next video.